Welcome back to part 4 of our 7-part series on the practice, where we talk about the essence and the core of the Recovery Dharma program, where 12-step recovery programs have the steps, and you're encouraged to work the practice. In the Recovery Dharma recovery program, we talk about the practice, as I like to affectionately call it. And that, again, is from the Recovery Dharma workbook. If you don't have a copy of the book, get a copy of the book. There's a free copy of the Recovery Dharma book. A free copy of the PDF version of the book. I'm not handing out free copies of the book. Though if you go to recoverydharma.org and you shoot them an email and say, I can't afford a book, they'll probably actually mail you one, quite frankly. Yeah, I'm not putting words in their mouth, and that's not a guarantee, but I don't know. The worst that could happen is they say no. Otherwise, you can go to Amazon and they sell them for like $10 or so. At the time of the filming of this video, I'm sure in the future it'll be like 1,000,000 rubles or something like that. Anyways, part 4, the path, in our quick start guide to the practice. The path. The path, as outlined in the book from the practice, is we commit to deepening and broadening our understanding of the Four Noble Truths and to practicing the Eightfold Path in our daily lives. This is literally the shortest parts of the practice out of the Recovery Dharma book. It's just like, hey, you know what? I'll even read it again because I got time to do it. We commit to deepening and broadening our understanding of the Four Noble Truths and practicing the Eightfold Path in our daily lives. The Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, for those who aren't familiar with Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist practices, that's the essence of what it means to have a Buddhist practice from kind of a Buddhist perspective. Now, another line from the Recovery Dharma book that I think expands and clarifies what the path is and what that element of the practice means to greater clarity is a line that goes along the lines of the path. The path is not a religious journey. It has nothing to do with belief, prayer, worship, or ceremony. It is a philosophy, a practice, and a way of living. It is a path that leads to deeper understanding of ourselves, our suffering, and the human condition. Yeah, that's all the practice is. Like, there's no woo-woo, like, religious overtones of the practice. It's a way of viewing and interpreting life in the world. It's very much interpreting the world through the lens of Buddhist psychology. You can make the argument that Buddhism is the world's original variation of cognitive behavioral therapy. That 2,600 years ago, there was this monk who came up with essentially cognitive behavioral therapy, in which through the practices of mindfulness and compassion, you're able to identify negative, harmful, unhealthy thoughts and say, hey, I should probably set those aside. And you're able to cultivate positive, healthy, beneficial thoughts and say, hey, I should probably cultivate these. And these will make my life a little bit easier and reduce my suffering. And oh, by the way, as an addict, it'll probably make me want to stop drinking, drugging, and indulging in harmful behaviors quite so much. And that's really where the fourth element of the practice comes into play. It's called the path. It's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. If you want to go into those, we could, but they tend to be quite extensive, quite in depth. The essence of the Four Noble Truths is the fact that we embrace the concept that, one, there is suffering. Okay, well, welcome to the human condition. We're not trying to sugarcoat it. We're not trying to run away from it. If you stopped at number 1, it's not a great philosophy. 2, there is a cause to suffering. Good news, I know, right? Otherwise, we'd have a major customer service complaint there. 3, most important, is the fact that there is an end. There is a path to the end of suffering, and that we acknowledge that there is, a medicine to take, that there is a better way of living. And ultimately, the fourth noble truth or way of living, or whatever, fourth noble truth is committing to walking the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is something that entire books are written to. The Eightfold Path is also signified in the original icon of the Recovery Dharma program, that little circle there, I keep it on here. I'll also put up a digital variation over here of what the Dharma wheel looks like. And if you look at a Dharma wheel, you'll notice that there are 8 spokes on the wheel, and that this is a traditional Buddhist image, and it's a good way to remember what the Eightfold Path is, because if you're new to Buddhist recovery and you're like, 8 things to remember, 1, 2, oh, wise understanding, wise effort, wise speech, wise action, oh, this is too much. I just don't want to drink and drug, man. Like, yeah, I totally get it. I don't want to drink and drug either. So the Eightfold, the best way to remember it as far as an easy memory aid is that it's like 8 spokes on a wheel, and that we need to make sure that all 8 spokes or 8 factors of our lives are in balance. Because if you think about like a wooden wheel back in the day, if those 8 spokes are misaligned or out of balance or not working properly, you're in for a rough ride, which is essentially what the translation of a word called dukkha means. But the whole idea, the whole essence, and the idea behind a Buddhist practice, especially for recovery from addictions of all kind, is to live in an easier, wiser way, a more skillful way. Sometimes the word wise gets thrown out there, wise friends, wise this, wise whatever. You can translate that just as appropriately as skillfully. So we're learning to live much more skillfully. We're learning to acknowledge and embrace the fact that in active addiction, many of us lived very unskillfully, and that in active recovery, by embracing these concepts of mindfulness, compassion, wise living, we can choose to live a life that is much more skillful and filled with much, much, much less suffering, which for people from active addiction histories, pretty good stuff to learn, right? So the fourth element of the practice, as outlined by the Recovery Dharma program, is looking at the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and starting to do an exploration of what do the Four Noble Truths mean to you? What does the Eightfold Path mean for you in your applications? A common question that, and maybe this is just because I live in the Midwest, but this is just a way of living. So whatever spiritual tradition you're coming from or lack of spiritual tradition, either way, you can complement these together. I grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I grew up Catholic. And there was a very famous Catholic monk named Thomas Merton, Catholic monk. And he was also an avid practicing Zen practitioner of Zen Buddhism. So he was a Catholic monk, but he also embraced Buddhist practice and principles. And he's not alone. There's many people, rabbis and people from the Jewish faith and Jewish spiritual tradition who also embrace Buddhist practices and ways of living. Because Buddhist practice is not a religion. It can be, depending on what country you're in and cultural rituals that you associate with it. But generally speaking, in the West, for the most part, it's much more a philosophy. It's a philosophy, and it's a way of living, and it's a practice as far as how do we live our lives. That is very much more of deeds before creeds. I'll say that again. It's very much deeds before creeds. It's much more about what you do and how you live your life than rather what are your beliefs and what is your belief system. So yeah, wise living, mindfulness, compassion, wise living are the essences of Buddhist practice. But here's the point I want to make, and this is what I'll wrap up on for this part of the video series. When it comes to the path, and it comes to the exploration of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, the Recovery Dharma book does a wonderful, wonderful job of introducing you to these thoughts and these ideas and these principles. But it really needs to be viewed as the beginning of your journey, not the end-all be-all of your exposure to Buddhist practices and principles. And we'll talk about that in the 7th principle of the practice, which is continual growth. But the Recovery Dharma workbook, fantastic book to introduce anyone at any level to a rudimentary introduction to these concepts and principles. But the thing I want to expose you to in this quick start guide is that there's many, 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 many other wonderful teachers, books, podcasts, Dharma talks, and resources for you to expand your knowledge and for you to find your path up the mountain, for you to figure out what your path to recovery look like. So don't just be limited to the Recovery Dharma book as far as your exploration of Buddhist practices and how they can benefit your recovery program. Also explore wonderful Buddhist teachers such as Tara Brach, such as Joseph Goldstein, who I mentioned, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Schalsberg, Pema Chodron. There's many, many, many wonderful, beautiful Buddhist teachers who can help impart this wisdom. The great thing, the wonderful thing, the thing that I love about Buddhist recovery is that there's no one path up the mountain. There's no one way to approach this information. Maybe it's the poetry and the phrasing of engaged Buddhism that Thich Nhat Hanh presents it, that speaks to your heart and somehow resonates to whatever you need to hear in this moment, that you say, oh, that I needed to hear that. So find your teachers, find your books. One of the core principles and one of the core founding ideas of Recovery Dharma is that there is no one leader, there is no one book, there is no one teaching lineage, that there are many paths of the mountain, and that we all get to be in this program of empowerment, find our own path to recovery. And a big part of that is exploring the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path through the fourth principle of the practice, the path. And in the next video, we're going to talk about inquiry and investigation. Ooh, we're going to look within. Oh yeah, what we are? Yeah, we're going to look within. We're going to start to do inquiry investigation. Also, as a side note, if you're finding these videos of benefit or of help to you, I hate to do this, but this is how Google works, or YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're finding these videos entertaining, helpful. It gives me positive feedback. It lets me know that I'm doing something right. It also helps other addicts and people in recovery to find this channel because the way the algorithm works is if people don't hit that like button, YouTube doesn't recommend it to people. So if you would like, or if you think other people looking for resources on Recovery Dharma would benefit from this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel and helps other people find us through their own searching. So thank you so much. And yeah, let's talk about journaling. Let's talk about inquiry and investigation, shall we? Let's do that next.